Stoicism, or the Stoic school of philosophy, stands alongside Epicureanism as being one of the truly and extremely influential Greek schools from the ancient period. In fact, some of you, if you've got like a Sunday school background, you may remember hearing about how St. Paul in Acts 17 went to the Areopagus there in Mars Hill and preached to the Greek philosophers. And the Stoics and the Epicureans were mentioned by name because they used to gather there and fight with each other. This is because not only is Stoicism an extremely influential school, just like Epicureanism is, but it's really its main rival. The Stoic school began early on, just as Epicureanism did, and went through a series of stages, commonly identified as early, middle, and late. I want to look at the later period of Stoicism, particularly the Roman Stoic philosophers, Epictetus, Seneca, Marcus Aurelius. And I want to focus on Epictetus's philosophy in particular. So how is Epictetus's Stoicism different from Epicureanism? At what points do they diverge? Well, at virtually every point they diverge with one another. I want to begin with their different theological views. So remember, for Epicureanism, there are gods, or at least the existence of gods is not denied. So there are gods, but the gods don't care much for the affairs of men. They don't interfere with our lives. They don't judge us. That would compromise their eternal beatitude and happiness to intertwine themselves in our lives. For Epictetus, the picture is quite different. God, or Zeus, is eminent throughout creation. He is in fact responsible for the creation of the world and has created it in a sort of rational way that reflects his own benevolence and providential care. So by God, or Zeus's benevolence, we've been made in something like an imitation of him. We also possess a rational nature, and by this we're able to come to know and to love and to sing hymns of praise to God. In addition to that, Zeus, or God, has constructed the world according to a rational design. So what follows from this is an important implication for Epictetus's Stoicism. What it means is that the universe, the history of the world, is determined. It is all predetermined, but it's predetermined by a benevolent, rational, providential, and caring deity. So what kind of impact does that have on his ethics? Well, you might think that since he gives so much airtime to God, or Zeus, he's thinking in terms of rewards and punishments after death. But the best evidence is that Epictetus actually agreed with the Epicureans that the soul is not immortal, that we don't live on after the death of our body. God, or Zeus, is not brought into the picture in order to mete out post-mortem rewards or punishments, but it doesn't follow from that God's existence and God's character is simply irrelevant to the moral life. As a matter of fact, because we can have trust in divine providence and benevolence, instead of trying to assert our own freedom in the world and conforming the world to our own wills and our own desires, the goal is closer to trying to conform our wills to the world's will, because the world's will, so to speak, is simply an expression of the benevolent will of God himself. So ethical conduct doesn't consist in trying to maximize your pleasures. It consists more fully in finding contentment and acceptance in your own lot in life, whatever your lot in life may be. Epictetus began his life as a slave and was freed only later on, continued to have physical ailments, was never a very rich person, but he was inspirational to the disciples who followed him because of his tranquility and equanimity in all of his circumstances. Okay, so with this basic difference between Epictetus and Epicurus, you can see that they have very different ideas about what the goal of human life is supposed to be, but still, you might think that Epicurus sort of has a leg up because he does consider us to be free, to have the liberty to sort of create or carve out our own destinies in life. And it looks like Epictetus takes that away from us. But Epictetus doesn't. He doesn't think he does. Epictetus has a different idea of what it means to be truly free, what it means to have the kind of dignity and liberty that we think comes along with our rational natures. So for Epictetus, our freedom, our liberty, comes along with our rational nature in the sense that it is through our rational nature that we're able to act with integrity and with self-control. So there are many things in our lives that we have no real sphere of influence over. There are contingent features about us, our appearance, our bodily health, our wealth, our fame, our position in the social strata, whatever it is. But those things for Epictetus are all contingent and external. They don't define who you are. What defines who you are is the internal. What defines who you are is that sphere of influence you have over your own volitions and which creates your own integrity and expresses your own self-control. Those things are within your power, no matter what the external circumstances of your life are. So you can have outwardly bad circumstances. You could be a slave, you could be poor, you could be ugly, whatever it is. But that doesn't take away, nor need it take away, from the freedom that you have to have a good and indeed a happy and blessed life.